Picture this. It's a warm June morning in 1944 in the French countryside. Birds are singing. Sunlight cuts through the trees along a quiet back road in Limousin. The war feels distant here. Then a black German staff car comes around the bend. Inside sits Helmut Kämpfe, 34 years old, a husband, a father of 3 young children, and one of the most decorated and feared SS officers in the entire Das Reich division. He's wearing his Knight's Cross, the medal Hitler himself awarded him just 6 months earlier for extraordinary bravery on the Eastern Front. He never makes it to his destination. The French resistance is waiting. Within hours, this man, this celebrated SS killer, will be burned alive inside a German ambulance. And within 48 hours, his best friend will respond by locking 205 children inside a church and setting it on fire. 642 civilians will be dead before the week is out. This is the story of 3 days in June 1944 that shook France to its core, and a chain of revenge so brutal, so unstoppable, that historians still debate it 80 years later. Welcome to WW Two Time Tales. Right now, before we go 1 second further, subscribe to WW Two Time Tales and hit that bell icon. We are the channel that goes inside the stories mainstream history is too afraid to tell. Real events, real people, real consequences. If you're a fan of raw, honest, documented history, you are in exactly the right place. Hit subscribe. Let's go. Before we call him a monster, let's be precise, because good history demands precision. Helmut Kämpfe was born on July 31st, 1909, in Saxe-Weimar-Eisenach, in what is now the German state of Thuringia. His father was a typographer, a printer, and young Helmut followed the same trade. He was not born into a military family. He was not raised on violence. But when Adolf Hitler seized power in 1933, Kämpfe made a choice. He joined the German army as a lieutenant, then transferred to the Waffen-SS in 1939, the military wing of Himmler's brutal security apparatus. He was a married man. He had 3 children at home. His last known photograph shows him in uniform, Knight's Cross at his throat, the Der Führer regimental cuff band on his sleeve. The image of a man who had fully surrendered his identity to the SS machine. He earned the close combat clasp in gold, one of only 631 soldiers in history to receive it, for hand-to-hand combat on the Eastern Front. He survived Stalingrad. He survived 3 years of the most savage warfare in human history. He survived the Soviet Union. He did not survive France. To understand what happened in June 1944, you need to understand what France had already endured for 4 years. After the German invasion of France in May 1940, the country was sliced in 2. Germany occupied the north and the entire Atlantic coastline. In the south, a compliant French puppet government was installed in the city of Vichy, bound by armistice to cooperate with their occupiers. The French resistance, the Maquis, formed slowly, quietly in the hills and forests of rural France. In the Corrèze and Limousin regions, these fighters were known for their fierce dedication and their hunger for revenge. They sabotaged German supply lines, sheltered Allied airmen, and gathered intelligence for London, all while living under constant threat of arrest, torture, and execution. Then came June 6, 1944. D-Day. Over 160,000 Allied troops hit the beaches of Normandy. The liberation had begun, and the resistance, electrified by the news, decided it was time to strike. On June 7, 1944, just 24 hours after D-Day, fighters from Jacques Chaput's Maquis FTP launched a full-scale assault on the German garrison in Tulle, a town of roughly 20,000 people in central France. They opened with a bazooka strike. By mid-morning, the town hall, the post office, and the train station had all fallen. But the battle immediately turned dark. At the train station, German troops recaptured the building and found 18 railway workers sheltering inside, wearing white armbands. Whether they were mistaken for partisans or simply executed out of rage, all 18 were shot on the spot. One man, Abel Leblanc, threw himself to the ground a split second before the volley of gunfire. He played dead. He was the only survivor. Fighting continued the next day. The Germans lost between 37 and 50 men killed, with up to 60 more missing, many believed executed after surrender. SS accounts describe German soldiers found mutilated. An eyewitness, Robert Lejugi, later testified, "Some certainly were damaged. There were fractured skulls and exposed brain matter, but that was the result of concentrated automatic gunfire. Both sides were committing acts of war. Both sides were losing men, and both sides were filled with rage. By the evening of June 8th, most of Tulle was in resistance hands. It felt like liberation. What it was a trap. At 9 p.m. on June 8th, the armored columns of the 2nd SS Panzer Division das Reich rolled into Tulle from 3 directions simultaneously. The resistance fighters, exhausted, lightly armed, completely unprepared for a full panzer assault, fled into the hills without a fight. The SS sealed the town, every road, every bridge, every alley. By dawn, 3,000 men were about to lose everything. This is where we slow down, because what happened on June 9th, 1944 in Tulle deserves to be reported with the care of an eyewitness, not just summarized. At first light, SS soldiers went door to door across the entire city. Under the lie of routine identity checks, they dragged nearly 3,000 men aged 18 to 60 from their homes, from their beds, still in their pajamas in some cases, and herded them to Sulak Square in front of the Tulle weapons factory. A local priest, Father Espinas, was permitted to walk among the prisoners. He later said the faces he saw were not the faces of fighters. They were the faces of bakers, teachers, farmers, and fathers. Gestapo officer Walter Schmald walked the rows and pointed. 120 men were marked. After desperate appeals from local officials, 21 were released. That left 99 men. Nooses, pre-tied, pre-measured, were already hanging from lampposts, from balcony railings, and from trees. They stretched for hundreds of meters through the streets of Tulle, a corridor of death prepared in advance. This was not a spontaneous act of rage. This was a planned, organized industrial execution. Each man was forced up a ladder. A noose was placed around his neck. When the ladder was removed, one eyewitness, a French official forced to watch, later testified, "In one case, the victim, badly hung, was racked by spasms. I saw the soldier who had removed his ladder pick it up and use it to beat the tortured man until he stopped moving completely." Another witness watched a soldier break the butt of his rifle on the back of a victim who had frozen in horror at the sight of the noose. And all the while, SS officers sat across the square at the Tivoli Café, drinking looted wine, playing music on a gramophone, watching. When it was over, the SS ordered the bodies thrown into the river. After frantic negotiations, local officials were permitted to bury them, anonymously in a garbage dump outside the city, covered in quicklime. Bodies stacked in rows of 10. No names, no markers. No dignity. 99 men in a single afternoon. Here is where history turns into something that reads like a dark novel, except every word of it is real. On the very same morning that 99 men were being hanged in Tulle, Helmut Kämpfe was driving through the Limousin countryside on a routine journey. He was ambushed. Sergeant Jean Canu, operating under the command of Colonel Georges Gangouin, the legendary communist resistance commander known as the prefect of the Maquis, intercepted Kämpfe's vehicle and took him prisoner. Gangouin was not an impulsive man. He was disciplined, methodical, and deeply political. He had been fighting the German occupation since 1941. He had survived years of Gestapo manhunts. He knew exactly who Helmut Kämpfe was, and he knew what was happening in Tulle. When his decision was made without hesitation, Kämpfe would be executed the following day. According to a French intelligence informant, on June 10, 1944, Helmut Kämpfe, a 34-year-old man whose 3 children were waiting for him at home, was placed inside a captured German military ambulance along with other German prisoners. The ambulance was set on fire. He was burned alive, in front of witnesses. His handcuffed, charred remains were left inside the vehicle on the road near Oradour-sur-Glane. Was it justice? Was it war? Was it vengeance? History gives you the facts. You decide what to call it. When Adolf Diekmann, Kämpfe's closest friend and commander of the 1st Battalion, learned his friend had disappeared, he immediately launched a search across the region. More 2 local men were shot dead simply for being present during his sweep. Then came the intelligence report. Kämpfe had been taken to a place called Oradour. On the afternoon of June 10, 1944, Diekmann brought his troops to the outskirts of the quiet village of Oradour-sur-Glane. Population approximately 650 people. A community so peaceful it had never once been troubled by the war. On the road at the village's edge, he found it. A burned German ambulance. His friends handcuffed, charred remains inside. Adolf Diekmann stopped being a soldier at that moment. He became something else entirely. Diekmann ordered every single person in Oradour-sur-Glane rounded up. The entire population was herded to the market square. Then the SS separated them, men to one side, women and children to the other. 203 men were taken to barns on the village outskirts and locked inside. 241 women and 205 children were forced into the village church. Then the SS set fire to the barns. Then they threw grenades through the church windows. Those who tried to escape the flames were shot at the doors. Madame Marguerite Ruffenche, the sole female survivor, later testified at the 1953 Bordeaux trial that she watched a mother try to pass her baby through a church window to safety. Both were shot. Marguerite herself jumped from a church window and was shot 5 times before crawling into a garden, where she lay hidden until she was rescued the following afternoon. Robert Hebra, who survived by hiding under corpses in one of the burning barns, spent the rest of his long life. He died in 2023 at age 97, returning to Oradour to tell the world what he saw. He said, "The truth is what I lived. 642 civilians dead, 205 of them children, in a single afternoon. On a sunny day in June, the SES looted the empty houses and burned the village to the ground before withdrawing at 8 p.m. that evening. Only 7 people survived the entire massacre." Walter Schmald, the Gestapo officer who pointed at men in Sulak Square, was captured by the resistance on August 15, 1944, and executed 1 week later. Adolf Diekmann, who ordered the massacre of 642 civilians, was killed by artillery fire in Normandy on June 29, 1944, less than 3 weeks after Oradour. He was never tried. Otto Weidinger was detained, interrogated, acquitted, and went on to write books about Das Reich that French historians condemned as revisionism. General Heinz Lammerding, the man who commanded the entire division, was sentenced to death in absentia by a French court in 1951. He was never extradited. He ran a successful engineering business in West Germany, lived freely, and died of cancer in 1971 at age 66. He never spent a single day in prison. The ruins of Oradour-sur-Glane still stand today, preserved exactly as they were on June 10, 1944, by order of President Charles de Gaulle, as a permanent open-air reminder of what happened there. You can walk those streets. You can see the burned-out cars, the collapsed church walls, the stopped clocks. Some of the victims have never been formally identified. 3 days, 3 towns, 741 civilians dead. The execution of Helmut Kämpfe did not start Das Reich's campaign of terror in France. They had been committing atrocities for months, but it cracked something open in the men around him, and what poured out swallowed an entire village whole. This is why history matters, not as a collection of dates and battles, but as a record of what human beings do to each other when systems of violence are normalized, when soldiers are told that civilians are threats, when revenge becomes policy. If this story moved you, it should. Like this video right now. It tells YouTube this story deserves to be seen. Subscribe to WW2 Tales and click the bell so you're notified the moment our next story drops. Every video we make is built on real records, real testimony, and real respect for the people who lived and died in these events. The forgotten deserve witnesses. We'll see you in the next one.